Can satellite internet impact the digital divide? I'm Gabriel Krishock, the Director of Digital Technologies with CARE, and I believe the answer is yes, and we're going to talk about how. The digital divide. This refers to the gap between those who have access to digital technologies like the internet and those who do not. This divide can be seen when comparing access between different countries, and within particular groups, such as by age, race, gender. And cost is a big one, but it's not the only factor that matters here. So great. So what can satellites do to help improve access around the world? In order to understand that, we actually have to understand a little bit more about the internet infrastructure in the first place. So here's our crash course. Many people are surprised to learn that actually the internet is made up of a series of tubes, just like this one. The vast majority of data being sent and received around the world actually goes through these massive undersea cables. So why is it more efficient and cheaper to lay these fiber optic cables rather than using modern satellites? The answer really comes down to issues of speed and costs. Interestingly, satellite communications can be kind of slow. In order to maintain a geosynchronous orbit, where the satellite is at a fixed location relative to our position on Earth, they have to be 36,000 kilometers away. That's 3,600 times the height of a jet at a cruising altitude. When you have to send signals back and forth, it takes time. It's milliseconds, but they really do add up. Even with that challenge, satellite connectivity has worked fairly well. Iridium satellites like this one have been around since the 1990s, and DirecTV subscriptions still has 18 million subscribers. However, if you could actually move those geosynchronous satellites closer to Earth, you could actually speed up communications by quite a lot, and that's what low Earth orbit satellites, or LEOs, actually do. The most well-known company doing this is Starlink, developed by SpaceX. Since 2012, Starlink has been building the infrastructure and technology to launch a global network of satellites that will provide internet access to ground-based locations from space. And you might have heard about Starlink recently because of reports of them helping out Ukraine to provide more and more communications in an emergency environment. Starlink started launching satellites in 2018 and began selling these user terminals shortly thereafter. Fun fact about these satellite dishes, they actually have a little heater on them, which makes them prone to wildlife. And these LEOs are much closer to Earth, just 550 kilometers. That's only 55 plane heights from the Earth. These tiny satellites are just zipping around. One satellite will orbit the Earth in 90 minutes and might spend only 100 seconds passing over a densely populated city. And as you can see, it requires a lot of them to make this network work. As of this moment, there are around 5,000 satellites in orbit, with around tens of thousands planned. As you can imagine, this is not without controversy. Such a constellation is facing major pushback from astronomers and, among others, for light pollution and interference with their instruments. Let's talk about performance. These actually seem to work pretty well. They're competitive not just with other satellite companies, but with fixed broadband overall, and that's a game changer. The market here is potentially enormous. Currently, about 90,000 people are testing the service, and Starlink claims they have pre-orders up to 500,000. Starlink isn't alone in doing this. OneWeb, a London-based firm, is also producing satellite-based internet services via these tiny satellites. Amazon is doing something very similar with their Project Kuiper, and they hope to launch 3,200 satellites in the next few years to do something very similar to Starlink's plans. Alphabet, or Google, shut down their Loon service in 2021, and Meta shut down their internet via drone service in 2018. But it should be noted that both are actually now investing in undersea cables and other internet-related technologies. So this space is getting bigger, not smaller. Returning to the digital divide, there's still just so many people that don't have access to the internet in a consistent way. And it's not just an urban versus rural debate, as it's so often painted. Access to the internet can be physically just unavailable, it can be unreliable, too expensive, too complicated, not encouraged, not allowed, illegal, or in some cases all of the above in some various fashions. And in some cases, the inaccessibility of the internet is a feature and not a bug. According to a report by Access Now, in 2020 alone, there were 29 countries that restricted access to the internet 155 times. Restricting access to the internet results in some truly inspiring examples by different communities. You need to look no further than the Tusha in Iran, the KNPB in Indonesia, or the SneakerNet in Cuba. Making the internet more accessible and available to more people in more places has been a mantra of global development for a long time. This is something that policymakers, economists, telecoms giants, tech companies, nonprofits, and foundations can all actually agree on. That is until fairly recently when we've realized that social media is tearing apart the fabric of society as we know it. But that's somebody else's lightning talk. Satellite internet will be important. It will impact the digital divide. But remember, it's not going to be a magic bullet. It's not going to solve everything all at once. And it's more than just access that requires social and economic change. Satellite internet can help provide a competitive force in pushing down market costs for internet service providers. It can raise access to more areas and more people in more places, and it can provide lifeline emergency services for humanitarian response. I'm excited about communities like ours to be able to figure out how we can nudge this in the right direction and make sure that we can have a positive impact on the role of the internet and access around the world. Thank you. I'm Gabriel Krishock. Have a great rest of your conference. Bye.